Hey guys, the Explorer 4 here, Horrorboy 465, aka Nate Murphy. Welcome back to some more reviews, and finally getting back to a movie review. I know that my movie reviews have been very spread apart. Um, I kind of just went through a phase, I guess, where I didn't really want to do movie reviews. I kind of wanted to take a break from doing them. So that was why there was that big marathon of vlogs and random videos and live streams and stuff like that. Just wasn't really feeling like doing any movie reviews at the moment. But I did see this movie yesterday, and I figured that since I had watched it, I might as well as review it. Before I even get into the story and anything about the movie, this will be a spoiler review. So if you haven't seen Jigsaw or possibly any of the Saw movies, then I would not watch this review because there will be spoilers in this. So spoiler alert starting now. And to talk about the Saw franchise real quick, I know the franchise through the years have kind of like decreased to what it used to be. The Saw franchise, as you guys know, back in like around the mid 2000s was one of the biggest horror film franchises out there. The franchise in itself has grossed so much money. It's been a very profitable franchise. It's been a very able to make sequel kind of franchise. Like they've been very easy to make sequels to. So Saw kind of became a franchise out of nowhere. It was also the directorial debut of James Wan, which I'm really a big fan of James Wan, the director of The Conjuring 2, Insidious. I'm not really a big fan of The Conjuring 1, but I'm a big fan of Conjuring 2. I'm a big fan of Insidious. Also really enjoyed Dead Silence, so I'm a really big fan of James Wan. And pretty much he got to start doing films from Saw. And a couple of the sequels I really enjoy. Like I really enjoy Saw 2, Saw 3, Saw 6. There's a couple bad ones like Saw 5, and Saw 4 was, I guess, watchable, but nothing really special about it. And then Saw 7 was just terrible. And I remember back when this movie was first announced, back in October. Well, it was released in October, but before October of 2017, I remember hearing about a new Saw movie being made because Saw 8 was in the was being talked about even before Jigsaw came into play. Before Jigsaw even came in, there was talks about Saw 8, and it was kind of weird because you call Saw the final chapter. It's like you're making Saw 8 completely ignore Saw 7, which I don't really care because I'm not really a big fan of Saw 7. But the fact that we're making a movie called Saw 8 kind of just completely made the previous movie pointless. Now I get it. It's like people are like, well, come on. The Friday the 13th franchise is the same thing. You had Part 4, the final chapter, Part 9, the final Friday. I think the director of Part 8 intended Part 8 to be the last movie. Which I guess in those cases kind of like, yeah, I mean, Part 4, the final chapter, even though it's not. But I felt that with the kind of ending that Saw had, because Saw the 7 really tried to end the series to the point where there would be no return. You know, there would be no continuation. That was the last chapter it was supposed to be. And I get it. In Friday 4, Jason was supposed to die, but he came back as a zombie. So there was still a way for Jason to come back. And even Part 5, even though it didn't have Jason in it, it still had a guy running around in a hockey mask killing people. So Friday the 13th, I don't know if it just works better or I can have fun with that idea a little bit more. But the fact that Saw 8 was starting to get talked about, I was kind of like, do we really need another Saw movie? Saw 7 was pretty bad. Do we really need a new movie? And then Saw 8, the talks about it went quiet. I didn't hear much about it after 2013, 2014. I didn't hear much about Saw 8, so I was like thinking maybe it's like Halloween 3D. Maybe it's just this thing that's talked about, then it's gone, you know? And then, of course, around early 2017, we started hearing about Jigsaw. And the thing that interested me about Jigsaw is that it wasn't calling itself Saw 8. It was calling itself Jigsaw, so I was thinking, is it going to be a spinoff? Is it going to be a remake? What is it going to be? And I started seeing commercials for it, and to be honest, I was very, split down the middle with the trailers and the posters, stuff like that. On one hand, it looked like it was approaching it in a different way, which I always support that, even if the movie is bad, like Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, which the Rob Zombie Halloween movies in general are bad, but Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, I can say, is definitely a very different movie. I can respect that it went a different route. It just did it in a very bad way. So on one hand, I was seeing sort of this new type of way to make a Saw movie, and I was like, all right, they're not going to try and remake the first movie. They're not going to try and rip off the previous movies. They're going to try and completely do this a different way. I respect that. Also, from the trailer, there was a couple of interesting trap ideas that looked good. And the movie looked intriguing, but I didn't think it was going to be anything too special. And so I seen it last night for the first time. And I'll be honest, at first I was kind of like, man, I'll watch it later. But then I'm like, well, I might as well watch it now. So it was even like that. I mean, I almost didn't watch the movie. I was kind of like, man, I'll watch it later. But then I was like, you know what? I haven't seen it yet. I'll check it out, And Jigsaw is an interesting movie because do I think it's better than Saw 7? Yes. I know a lot of people are going to be like, what? That's crazy. For me, this is a much better movie than Saw 7. Is it saying that it's a great movie? No. I wouldn't say Jigsaw's a great movie. It has problems, and it has especially story problems and predictability, which this is probably the most predictable Saw movie. And I'm talking about even more predictable than Saw 5, more than, what else is a predictable Saw movie? Saw 4, at least for me, Saw 4 is pretty predictable. I don't know. Because the rest of the movies, they kind of were unpredictable. But Saw 5, I hated that twist. I couldn't stand that twist. Saw 4 had a twist that I could kind of see coming because I kind of already knew about the Hoffman storyline, so maybe that's why. But this movie probably has, in my opinion, the worst twist. Now, I think the twist tried the best it could to explain itself because I was lost. I'm like, okay, either way they pull this twist off, it's not going to make sense. And it was predictable. I thought it was more one of the weaker twists of the series. It just didn't have that same impact that the first movie or second movie or even the third movie or even Part 6 had. I'll even say this. I'm not a fan of Part 7, but I thought the twist was pretty decent. How, you think he's going to get away with the murders, and then Dr. Gordon steps in and, puts him in this trap. Or he chains them in the room that they were in the first movie. Interesting twist, but this movie was probably one of the more weaker ones. And I'll get into that in a second. But Jigsaw came out in 2017. Gets a 5.9 on IMDb. And I kind of want to see how much this made, because depending on by how much this made, we could be getting a new series. At least that's what I'm thinking with this movie. For some reason, it's not letting me look at the price. An ad popped up and it won't go away. Go away! I don't know what's going on here. IMDb is being difficult. But it cost about $10 million, so it didn't really cost a whole lot of money. It says here in the U.S. made about $38 million. Opening weekend made about $16 million, so it did pretty decent in the box office. And if we're going by even alone, the U.S. alone already made back its money. So I'm guessing even worldwide, that's going to be a lot of money. So I'm thinking they're going to start making sequels to Jigsaw. Now, it'll be a little confusing because it's like, all right, over here's the Saw movies and over here's Jigsaw. I think it could be interesting because you could be taking the Saw series in a whole new direction. And I like how in this movie, because I was going to go in this movie, and I'm like, maybe they're going to do the whole Hostel Part 3 thing, where they're going to focus on the torture stuff and the gore. And there is gore, there is traps, there is the torture stuff. But unlike Hostel 3, it doesn't lean on it too much. And I think Hostel 3 is decent. I think it's underrated. There's a lot of people who don't like it. I think it's, for what it is, a decent time waster kind of movie. not a great movie, but it's better than Hostel Part 2, which is my opinion. Um, I think that Hostel Part 3 kind of leaned on that whole torture and gore and didn't do it the same, at least to the same strong way like the first movie did. So Hostel Part 3, I like the idea, I like the setting, I like the premise, but I felt that it was kind of clinging to that gore and that torture stuff too much. I liked how in Jigsaw it wasn't focusing on just gory traps and how much gore and how much traps can be in the movie. I like how they put the traps in there, but they still focus on the storyline. They still focus on the characters. They built up the twist, and it is a bit of an interesting idea because this is probably the first prequel sequel that I've seen. Honestly, I can't think of another movie that's a prequel and a sequel. So, in that regard, I think it does a pretty good job making a prequel sequel. Which it's a predictable prequel sequel because you're like, okay, this person died over here. How are they over here if that scene just happened? So I kind of seen the twist coming, but I like the premise. A prequel sequel, I like it. I think it worked good in this movie, and I think it could be used probably a little bit more often in other films. Because like I said, I can't really think of a prequel sequel. I know there's prequels that kind of have sequel endings, which I guess this movie kind of has, but it is kind of the prequel sequel because there's the sequel part and then there's the prequel part. And for those wondering still what's going on, I already said spoiler alert, but Jigsaw pretty much starts off with a guy who has this remote control in his hand, and he's running from the police catch up to him, and he's talking about the games are starting. He presses start, he gets shot, and the police start investigating. And while they're investigating, they're starting to find suspects. Maybe Jigsaw's alive. Maybe Jigsaw isn't dead. And I already knew that Jigsaw was dead. I already knew that because I'm like, if they bring Jigsaw back seriously in this movie and they try to play off like he didn't die, I'm going to be furious because it completely just ignores, first of all, even if he had a fake, death, he still had cancer, and he was dying of cancer in Saw 3. So it's like, even if he faked his death where he got the throat slit with the saw, from, was it Ben or was it Jeff? I can't remember his name from Saw 3. I gotta rewatch the Saw movies one day and review them, but I already canceled that franchise review, so those reviews are going to happen in the future, but I don't remember if it was Ben or Jeff or Jack or something like that. Slits Jigsaw's throat. Even if he faked that, he still would have died because he was dying of cancer at that time. So I knew Jigsaw was not the killer. People were saying, well, maybe Jigsaw's back. I'm like, there's no freaking way. If he's back, then I'm going to be mad because that don't make sense. And while the police is investigating what's going on, they find dead bodies, and they start figuring out there's a game going on. And it leads to suspects. You have this one girl who I guess is this assistant to this morgue guy, the mortician. I don't know mortician. I can't think of the word right now. But the guy who does autopsies on bodies, him and his assistant. You find that the assistant is like literally one of the most suspicious people I have seen in a horror film because she has all these traps and like this freaking garage area, all these jigsaw traps everywhere, like the reverse bear trap, the rib cage trap. She has all these traps, and I'm like, this is literally, if she's not Jigsaw's like apprentice, then she's one of the most suspicious people in this movie. And you find out that she isn't. She isn't an apprentice. At least I didn't catch it. I know that she's running off to a car in the distance at the end of the movie, but I didn't catch him saying that she was an apprentice or whatever. So I'm assuming that she's not a Jigsaw apprentice. And I'm like, even if she's not, then she's the most suspicious person ever. If she is, it's the most obvious person ever. So either way, there's a problem there. And the movie plays out. You have the traps going on. Kind of reminded me of Saw 5, where They go from level to level. And that idea I didn't mind in Saw 5. It was just not done well because the traps sucked, there was no impact to them, and lots of CGI. Here in this movie, I felt that it was the Saw 5 template done better. That's just my opinion on it. I felt that it was Saw 5 done better. It's not exactly like Saw 5, but it's the same template. It's where they go level to level, room to room, and there's different traps in each room. And I like how it's a much more different take on a Saw movie. Like, it plays out differently than the other movies do. Because with the twist being built up, I kind of seen it coming. Honestly, the prequel sequel part where it's like, oh yeah, the traps and stuff like that is in the past, and the detective stuff like that is in the future. It's like present day, but the traps that are going on with Jigsaw is the past. Which it's kind of weird because it kind of makes the prequel part a little pointless. I mean, I guess it's to say, oh yeah, this is Jigsaw's first game. It's his very first game. But it's like, so, and I already said spoiler alert, so at this point, you guys already know I'm spoiling things. So, if those two people die at the end of the movie, then nobody survived the first game. Alright, I understand that, it's the first game. But, besides, I guess, helping the twist, what was the point of that whole prequel? It really, the more I think about it, it's kind of a pointless prequel. Because really, and I guess like, oh yeah, well maybe the guy was involved in the trap, and maybe that's how it showed how he became an apprentice, which I'll get to in a second. But I'm like, even that, it's like it's kind of like barely mentioned. It's like, oh yeah, I was in the trap, and he took me in, and he taught me things. He used me as a student, and it's like he mentions it like once. I'm like, all right, maybe that would happen, but then there's no point to it because that's like the only thing that really adds to the twist, and also the fact that you think it's Jigsaw and it's not Jigsaw, which I'll get into all that in a second. But some of the traps that happen at the beginning of the movie, you have everybody wearing these buckets, and there's these saw blades. Kind of reminded me of Saw 5, where there's like these razor blades, and the people are getting pulled to the razor blades. Same thing here, only it's saw blades. They get out of there. The next trap was where all 4 of these people were going to get hung. I believe it was, about 4 people. All these people were going to get hung at this girl who stole money from this lady or stole pills or whatever from this lady, and she died. This girl, she has this poison in her, and she has 3 needles, and one of them's an acid. The other one's a cure. I didn't remember what the third one was. Which that trap was kind of like weird because I'm like, lady, if it's acid, just squirt it on the ground. If you see smoke and it's burning the ground or whatever, or it's acting like acid, or heck, take it and spray it on your hand. And, just spray it on your hand. Maybe it's an acid that doesn't trigger until it gets into your body, but they didn't say that. So I'm like, just squirt a little bit on your hand. Just if it doesn't burn you, then just use that needle. Because I can't remember what the third thing was, but it was acid, like burning acid or whatever. It was poison, or it was cure, and there was a third thing. I can't remember if it was like a poison or something like that, but she already had a poison in her. I'm like, if she was so worried about this acid that would melt her skin and stuff like that, melt her insides, then just, take a little bit of it, maybe a drop or whatever. If it burns your skin, that's a needle to use. And then boom, you survive. But no, this guy takes all 3 needles and shoves it in her neck so that they don't get hung. And you see like this bubble start to form, and she pretty much dies. They go into the next room, and the one guy who caused the girl to die, he gets his leg trapped and cut off. This other guy gets, because he was responsible for, I guess, Jigsaw's cousin or something like that, or his nephew. I think it was his nephew who died because this kid sold him a motorcycle even though he knew the brakes were out. So you have this trap that was kind of confusing, but it's like a spinning razors and stuff like that. And the guy thinks he survives, but he gets cut in a million pieces. And it gets to the final room where Jigsaw's there. And this is towards the end of the movie. Detectives starting to figure out what's going on. The surgeon guy, not the surgeon guy, but the autopsy guy and the girl, they go to this farmhouse where the traps are being, set, they think. And this one cop follows them there, so you got that going on in the present day. And then pretty much how the prequel part ends, the girl and the guy are sitting in the room. Jigsaw says there's one bullet, there's a key to your guys' freedom, and you guys are going to think, or stop thinking so backward or something like that. So the girl says, well, I have to free myself, so I have to kill you. And he goes, wait, he said it's backwards. So she shoots and it blows half her head off. He gets the key and it's broken, so I guess he bleeds out and dies because of the wound in his leg. And that's where the prequel ends. And the twist is that the autopsy guy, who I guess was responsible for John Kramer getting really bad cancer because he put the wrong names on the wrong x-ray scans, and it caused the doctors to think that John Kramer's cancer was more severe than it actually was. So he was the reason why John Kramer got, worse and worse and worse in cancer. And John Kramer feels sorry for him, gets him out of the trap, teaches him how to build these traps. Which I'm like, at this point, there's freaking 3 people who have been apprentices. Hoffman, Amanda, and this autopsy guy. And the thing is, didn't, Jigsaw also help Dr. Gordon? I can't remember, because I haven't seen Saw 7 in a while. But I don't know if Dr. Gordon was an apprentice, but there was other people in the background. Like when Gordon put the needle in Hoffman in 7, there's 2 people in the background which you don't see wearing pig masks. So it's are they also apprentices? So that kind of got a little confusing. So that's what I mean. It's not a perfect movie. It has problems, especially the storyline. There's a lot of plot holes. A lot of things don't make sense. It's how many apprentices does this guy have? And it's this autopsy guy, I can't remember his name. Actually, I think he's the lead in the cast. So I can just get on here and see. Logan Nelson, played by Matt Passmore. He is pretty much the killer. He's Jigsaw. And the detective guy has his laser collar on and lasers his head, and his head opens up like a freaking gore flower type thing. Good effect. And decent effects in this movie as well. But yeah, Logan is the new Jigsaw. And he walks out. The one girl who's obsessed with Jigsaw, she is on the road running to a car, so I guess she escaped. And the movie ends with that. And it made money, so we're going to get sequels to this. Jigsaw 2, 3, however many they're going to make. So, the movie has problems. First of all, before I get to the problems real quick, I want to say the good things. First of all, I like the look. It doesn't have that grimy, gritty look that the other Saw movies have. But I do like this movie's look. It has its own kind of atmosphere. I like that. Kills were decent. They weren't great, but they were decent. They kept it mostly practical. I didn't really catch too much bad CGI, so at least they did that. They tried having decent characters. Granted, not all of them worked, but they were what they were. They were okay, I guess. I like the idea of the prequel sequel. The movie is very fast-paced. It's probably the shortest Saw movie, honestly. I'll probably have to check on that. But it's a very short movie, fast-paced, which a lot of Saw movies struggle with the pacing. So this one fixed that. It has a short pace. That's good. Tobin Bell coming back is awesome. He does great as Jigsaw. I like how it's going in a different direction. How it's not trying to copy the original or copy the sequels or just be another, shell of a Saw movie, if that makes any sense. Not trying to stay in that torture and gore and extreme blood. It tried to have that, but it also tried to have a good story and good characters. Granted, it didn't work all the time, but it worked sometimes. That's pretty much it. Problems, first of all, the twist, very predictable. I seen it coming. Um, Granted, the killer, he was on my suspect list. It was either him or it was the girl who was obsessed with the Jigsaw. So I was like, it was either him or her. So I kind of narrowed it down to him. And when he was revealed to be the killer, I'm like, he was on my suspect list. So that was kind of predictable. The idea that he pretty much copied the original game, like the prequel part, like the police find dead bodies from this game over here, and it's like, okay, that death scene just happened. So how did Jigsaw get this dead body all the way over here by these police? And you figure out that Logan had pretty much copied the original game, I guess frame by frame, because he would have to. And he got these people who looked similar to the people from the original traps, and that's why they find these bodies. First of all, he went through all that to do a copy of an original game, and I guess to try to bring Jigsaw back. And you find out that, since he's an autopsy guy, he has access to Jigsaw's blood. So that's why they find Jigsaw's blood. They find, all the evidence pointing to Jigsaw. So people are going to think that Jigsaw is back when in reality he's not. Weird twist. Very weird twist. I don't know about the Logan character being the future Jigsaw. I thought that he could have done a little bit more better. I don't know. It's weird that knowing that he's going to be the future of the Saw movies. It's like, hopefully in the next movie, he can bring something new to the table, because in this movie, he did okay, but not enough to make a whole franchise off of. So hopefully they can fix that in the next movie, make him have more character traits, make him have maybe better acting, add more to the character than what's there, because there's not enough there to make a whole franchise off this one character. So yeah, lots of plot, problems. The prequel sequel idea was kind of pointless, the prequel part at least, because yeah, it's the first couple of traps, I understand that, but it's like, what's the point of showing that? What's the whole point of showing these people going through the first traps, and then they just all die? Because this guy can copycat it, so they can add to the twist. So the prequel part is pointless. Sequel part is decent, making it sort of a sequel and making it to where there's a new follower. It is kind of bullcrap how there's another freaking student of Jigsaw, follower of Jigsaw. I don't get it. I don't get where all these people are coming from, because if Logan was saved from the original traps, then, why wasn't he around Hoffman? Why wasn't he around Amanda? Doesn't make sense. But for what the movie is, it's decent. It's alright. It's not the greatest. It's not going to be a movie that I'm going to watch tons of times in the future. It's one of those movies that I may pick it up on DVD if it's on a good price. It's not anything too special, but it tried some things. Certain things failed, certain things didn't. For what it is, it's a decent movie. It's okay. It's not terrible. I wouldn't find a reason to rage on it. It's not like it's an offensive, bad Saw movie. It's just sort of so-so. It's all right. It's a decent little movie. I thought it was pretty decent. But yeah, anyways, guys, that's pretty much my review of Jigsaw. I have problems with it, but there are also things I like about it, and possibly looking at a new franchise. So that's interesting. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching the review. Hope you guys enjoyed. The Explorer of Horror, is out. See you guys.